So thank you all for coming to this award ceremony for the inaugural CCR translation contest for young scholars. Firstly, we would like to give our special thanks to the SEAA and to local organizers for their gracious hospitality and assistance in spreading out the word through the SEAA website and mailing list, and in organizing the award ceremony. We would like to say that this contest is an individual program and is not run by the SEAA, but they have been offering their very generous support, and we are all grateful to this help, which made this happen today and everybody can be here. My name is Chen Xing, and I am the Associate Editor of the Chinese Cultural Relics Journal. As some of you have already known, I'm also the administrator and executive organizer of this translation contest. So when those of you who participated in the contest and received the emails from the organizing committee, the person behind was usually me. But this contest is made a success not because of my own work, but contributions from the whole team. And I'd like to introduce you, if not yet greeted, by our managing editor, Gary Guan. This idea of having this contest, and our editor, Rachel Turner. Production manager Anna Niedermeyer. So it was a fabulous teamwork that put everything together in order to bring you a joyful experience in this contest as well in this ceremony. Now, before I go into the introduction of this contest, let's welcome Anna to give us a brief introduction to the CCR journal in general. Thank you, Anna.
For those of you who haven't met yet, I'm Anna Niedermeyer. I am the Director of Publishing at Eastview Press. We're the company that puts out Chinese cultural relics. And we are in our third year of publication now. Very happy that we were able to offer this opportunity together with SEAA to do this translation contest. And I just obviously want to take a moment to congratulate all the finalists and honorable mention that were able to be here today, and also just a big thank you to everybody that took part. We really weren't sure what to expect in terms of a turnout, but we were very pleasantly surprised by both the number of contestants and the quality of the work that was submitted. For those of you who don't know, Chinese Cultural Relics is the official English translation of the journal Wenwu. And as I said, we're entering our third year of publication, which is kind of a big deal to pass kind of the first rocky few years of a new publication. So we're happy to be continuing here. And definitely we're thankful to be able to work with such kind of an esteemed journal and well-known publishing house. So Shin's going to go into more detail, but believe me, putting together each of these issues is quite an undertaking. From the very start, we work really closely with the publisher to select what we feel are the best articles that'll be of the most interest to our readers. And then after that comes the fun part, or the hard part, which is all the translation and editing work that goes into each article. And as I'm sure most of you can appreciate, there is such a wide variety of material covered by Longwood that no one person or one team is really qualified to deal with all of this subject matter. So what we found is that we are reaching out to basically you guys, the community at large, fairly often to be able to finalize the content. And I know Gary had a presentation earlier this week where he touched on kind of the challenges, and as our two finalists will also talk about today, there are all sorts of challenges that come up when working with this content, and like I said, we really do truly rely on the community to get these articles out the door. Just really quick, our goal The reason why we wanted to do this project is, our company has been huge fans of this journal for many years, and we understand that the content it's putting out is really important and really worthwhile. And for us, just in general, our company's goal is basically, to make kind of this harder to access information available to a wider audience. Most of the work that I do in ECU Press is translation work, whether it's Russian, Chinese, what have you. And our goal is always to identify interesting content and make it more accessible. So that was the reason that we went after this title. And obviously for most of you, you don't really need the English. You can read the original just fine. But we do, still want to be there for you as a resource. I'm sure a lot of you have to do some amount of translation in your scholarship and, potentially in the future in your careers. And we really want this journal to be a resource for you, to be kind of an authoritative work that you can turn to for help with terminology. So I've been very pleased to actually shake the hands of our translators during this conference. It's been really great to see all of you. And again, I'm really happy with how this contest turned out and the fact that we're being exposed to great translators as well. So I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. So hand it back to Shirley.
By the finalists, I would like to give you a little more background information about the contest itself. So the contest is designed for young scholars. So by using the term young scholar, we set the contest participants' qualification as either graduate student working towards his or her master's or doctoral degree on a broad range of topics related to Chinese archaeology, history, Asian architecture, and art history, or a young scholar who completed his or her master's or doctoral degree in the field within the past 5 years. So this would include postdoctoral fellows and young professionals in related fields. And the participants will work on selected articles in Wenwu or cultural relics, translating the original Chinese text into English. This year, contestants could choose from the articles in 3 different categories. Category 1, archaeological reports. Category 2, research and exploration, illustration. And Category 3, editor's choice. The editorial board carefully selected these 3 original articles as they are the key pieces in the most recent issues of Wenwu. And they cover cutting-edge archaeological report and research on various topics of different periods, Bronze Age, the Qing Dynasty, Northern Dynasties, Terracotta Army, Chariot, Silk Road, Stonehenge, Tomb Mural, and so on. So this selection aims to encourage people from different backgrounds to join the contest. And the contest was open for online registration on January 7th, 2016. And the news was spread out through the official website, SEAA website and mailing list, social media including Twitter, Facebook, Weibo, and WeChat. So we've got more than 50 registrations from around the world. And by the submission deadline on March the 31st, we received 24 qualified submissions of translations from young professionals, postdoctoral researchers, Ph.D. candidates, students, master's students in the fields of archaeology, anthropology, archaeological science, history, art history, architectural history, museology, and even in English language. And these candidates are from the US, Canada, UK, China, and so on. We've got 9 submissions for the research and exploration category, 15 submissions for the editor's choice category. Unfortunately, this year we don't have any submission for the archaeological reports. Well, actually, we expected many contestants who would choose it, but it seems that our participants prefer to challenge themselves with even more difficult articles in the research field. So originally there were 3 final prizes, 1 from each category. But since the absence of the archaeological report category, this year we only have 2 finalists. So all these submissions were blind reviewed by the Judgement Panel, and we gladly have Professor Sarah Nelson from Judgement Panel here, and she will lead a discussion after the presentations by the finalists. Thank you. So I think that's enough for me. So now let's welcome Jiawei, who is a lecturer in the Department of English Language and Literature from Wuhan University. He is the finalist from the Research and Exploration category, and he did his undergraduate study in English major in Shanghai University in China, and graduate study in English and Language and Literature from Wuhan University. And he was a full-time lecturer in Guangdong University of Foreign Studies. And before he went to Nanjing University to did his Ph.D. study in English and Language Literature, and then he got his Ph.D. in 2014. Since then, he has been conducting research in postdoctoral program in Department of English Language and Literature, Wuhan University. Let's welcome Jiawei.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me this opportunity to speak here about my personal experience on translating the Chinese cultural relics contest. This is the title of my speech for today, the translation of CCR text as a non-expert. As you have already heard, I'm from the English department, but I'm very interested in Chinese cultural relics, especially the study of Chinese ceramics in the period of Song Dynasty and Tang Dynasty. And I've been collecting some of the specimens of these ceramic artworks, so I pay close attention to also to the English materials about the related fields. I will introduce the preparation and initiation process of this translation and the challenges that I've met, as well as the general principles that I adhere to in the translation work, as well as answering your questions if there is any. As a non-expert, I should first read some papers about the same Turbino culture, the paper that I will translate, and those that contain such a keyword, and those that are published in renowned journals and written in exquisite and powerful styles that I decide they are very powerful or really exquisite. For example, this is an article that I don't know William Watson in person because I'm not a student in this field, but I found his essays quite powerful in talking about Eastern Norma's culture. So I read these kind of articles first before I carry out the translation, and I collected some of these English papers in my files, as you can see listed here. And I also found this book in PDF form online, The Horse, the Wheel, and the Language. I found it particularly interesting and inclusive in introducing the early Bronze Age culture. And I searched this book with several keywords that I will meet in the translation of the same Turbino culture and prehistoric Silk Road. And this book is found out both from the Note 11 of Professor Lin Meicun's paper that I will translate, and from the Google techniques that I usually use. So I take out all possible jargons and terms that I need to consult and ensure of their equivalence in English before I do sentence by sentence translation. For example, I make sure that I know how to translate in English the Okunev culture and Andronovo culture and things like that. And term and jargon equivalents are not difficult to find out by using Baidu and Google together. For example, I can first Baidu the Chinese letter of Okunev culture and then use Google, especially Google Books, to determine whether that Baidu results are trustable. But Google Books or English publications in book form by serious publishers determine the final translation, not solely by my own English instinct. I can give you 3 examples about the challenges that I met during the process. For example, we see 单细耳山字及顶叶毛. I translate this a double-blade spearhead with a trident midrib and a single lateral loop. And all these words, for example, the trident midrib and the single lateral loop, are not invented by myself or by my own English instinct, but are seriously following the precedent examples that are seen in books like The Wheel of the Language and blah by Professor Watson. Oh, not Watson, sorry, I forgot the author. Picture reading, connoisseurship experience involved, and no language could exactly describe the material. I mean, the spearhead in a perfectly visual manner, and the translation, the purpose of translation is to transmit as much information as possible while not bewildering the specialists as readers. And another example, as you can see in the sentence, 墓主身体左侧着地，双腿弯曲，头向东. I translated as, the body in the tomb was positioned on its left side with legs flexed and head facing the east. Such kind of clause structure is also following precedent examples that are found in acceptable English books or renowned publications. The first encounter of this clause makes me believe that it's jargon related and should not be translated word by word. Second encounter of the 养生直之藏, the jargon, okay, ensures my judgment about the first encounter. Sometimes I have to revise things when I read other papers and subsequent parts of Professor Lin's paper to polish previous expressions. Sorry. Let me go on. The third example, you can see these 2 Chinese texts. The lower picture comes ahead of the upper one in Professor Lin's Chinese paper. I have to translate Jie Liu, a Russian expert's name, but met great difficulty. On the one hand, Professor Lin does not provide his Russian or English name anywhere in his paper. On the other, Jie Liu as an expert is not easily found on Google as to his biographical information or anything that is related with El Nino excavation. So I paid close attention to Jie Liu, and searched this Kirushan on Google and find that Professor Lin has misspelled his name both in his paper and his previously published paper, which is YF instead of YE, which was corrected in this English translation, and I made a note on this specific place. I even borrowed a book from Chinese National Library for this issue to determine my translation on this specific spot. As you can see, the book's name is, I think you're very familiar with it, Ancient Metallurgy in USSR by Chernik. And my search on Google, YF Kirushan with El Nino, found nothing but results of Kirushan, which is spelled like this. But YF Kirushan's name could also be seen on Google's page showing serious publications, for example, the Urals and Western Siberian Bronze and Iron Ages. So I guess this is due to Russian names translation problem and it's out of personal control, my personal control. So in order to be objective to Professor Lin's original text in the translation process and to be discreet in general in his work, I chose to translate a note, to write a note to correct the Professor Lin's spelling error, as seen in my translator's note, instead of saying that Jie Liu and Jie Lu are actually one person, which is probably the case in actuality. So I add a note that you probably cannot see because of the page size here, so I skip it. And then, as to introduce the general principles, first I try to be faithful to the original text and believe that every word is carefully written and should be transmitted as carefully as possible. And secondly, an English translation should be readable and pleasurable for a Western specialist's reading experience. It should be pleasant in language quality. Thus, it should follow the general habit of expressing a certain phenomenon or fact or object. For example, I chose to use BCE instead of BC. That is also right, but not the habit for the specialists in this field. And the third, in order to achieve point 2, there should be abundant and powerful previous cases proving that my treatment of a certain clause or term is acceptable, and Google Books provide technical possibility for this. But a discerning eye is also important because there are so many Google Books and their quality is diverse. It's quite diverse. This is somehow like Wang Jiawei, his 二重证据法, the method of dual evidence. I can use actually the keyword 二重证据法 or the method of dual evidence as an example to demonstrate how I translate this 二重证据法. But since time is limited, I think you have already more or less understand how I did it as a 3-step process in determining whether the translation is acceptable or not. And the final principle of my translation is to arrange my syntax and diction in a scholarly manner. This is not just out of my personal experience of reading both antique English and books and papers, but also academic books in general about my own field, narrative study of modern American literature. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jiawei. Now we come to the next finalist, Jie. He is a Ph.D. candidate in the Department of Art History in the University of Chicago, and he is a finalist from the Editors Class category. He did his he got his bachelor in law from Renmin University of China in Beijing, and his master's in arts from Peking University. And he attended the master program of art history in University of Virginia before he pursued his PhD in art history in University of Chicago. And he is the Andrew Mellon Curatorial Fellow 2015 to 2016 in the Department of Asian Art in the Art Institute of Chicago. Thank you.
So first I want to express my deep appreciation to Gary and the organizers of this contest for inviting me to this great event. And last year I was interviewed by a TV station for the mausoleum of the Longwood Kingdom at my hometown. So when the program came out, I noticed I was mistakenly given the title archaeologist. I feel happy about that. It was my childhood dream to become an archaeologist. No, I didn't have the opportunity to pursue it. But I also feel a bit ashamed because as an art historian, I understand the work of archaeologists is a more laborious, tough-going, and even life-risking. So it's really my great honor to be part of this translation project, being able to introduce the wonderful works of Chinese archaeologists to American readers. So in my presentation, I will briefly talk about my experience of translating Professor Wei Zheng's article, 北朝, let me see, okay, here. So, 北朝高足围屏床榻的形成. Based on this article, I want to point out two common features in the writings of Chinese archaeologists, explain the challenges they pose to translators and how I handle these challenges, drawing on my art history background. So first, I want to talk about balancing 以图证实 with a contest. In the field of humanities in China, there's a well-established tradition called 以图证实, namely using images to prove history. In this tradition, Chinese archaeologists embrace the idea that pictures and sculptures found in tombs can be used to reconstruct a general historical reality. So, Professor Wei Zheng this article is a good example for such an idea. So although the main objects of his study come from tombs, like here, like this object, or this mural painting in tomb chamber, but his aim is to reveal a type of furniture used in daily life, as depicted in this picture. This is one of the most realistic paintings in Chinese history. So to the author, these objects, like this painting, mural painting, are primarily imitations of these actual objects depicted here. This mimetic approach to mortuary objects brings about the first difficulty in my translation: how to translate the term 床榻 in the title, 床榻. Both bed and couch are popular translations in English literature. If we follow the author's intention, bed seems to be a better choice. According to, as a Chinese scholar Yang Zhishui has noted, in bed, there's no physical difference between this sleeping bed and the sitting bed. They just use the different. So there's no physical difference between these two structures. So I think the term bed signifies the major function of these objects, namely sleeping furniture that can also be used for sitting. Besides, the term bed also recalls the way corpses were laid upon these objects. However, in English translation, the term bed would cause tension between the sleeping function it stresses and the material evidence it refers to, which is predominantly sitting furniture. This is true not only in mural painting like this, the author cites it in his article, but also here. So, although the deceased were laid upon the furniture, in the portraits, these portraits here, they are always sitting frontally. Art historians tend to look at tombs as a self-contained constructions. So as many art historians have pointed out, this type of furniture was created specifically for ancestral sacrifice in tombs. It is intended to evoke the images of the deceased sitting frontally as the subject of worship. Considering this ritual context, I found the term couch to be a more accurate, appropriate translation. It emphasizes the sitting function of mortuary furniture and yet does not exclude its possibility, its possible association with the actual beds in daily life. And the second, I want to talk about identifying misnomer in conventional usage. In the field of art history, many arguments start by correcting misnomers. To Chinese archaeologists, however, it is more important to follow the conventional usage of terms, particularly those adopted by local archaeologists who conduct exhibitions and write first-hand reports. Thus, correcting misnomers is less urgent to Chinese archaeologists, especially when these terms do not impede readers' understanding. Nevertheless, in English translations, misnomers could be a big problem. Take the word 棺床 for example. 棺床 for example. It literally means this coffin couch or coffin bed. However, if we use coffin couch here, the sentence sounds pretty strange. So the corpses were placed directly on the coffin couch, and here, there, and therefore they are called coffin couches because they use accommodate the bodies of the deceased. So what's the relationship between a corpse and a coffin couch? Because the points the author
wants to make here have nothing to do with the coffins. If it's all about the relationship between the couch and the corpse, so why does the coffin need to be noted here? In fact, as the author himself acknowledges in this article, in most cases, the corpses were put directly on the stone couch. In this sentence here, this is the Chinese sentence, the author even adopts a more accurate term, mortuary couch. He only uses 尸床 once in his article, but this is definitely a more accurate term here. Why does he use the term? Why doesn't he use this term in other places? The reason is that I think 棺床 or coffin bed has always been used to describe mortuary couches in Chinese, and even though they have little to do with the coffin. So the author just does not want to do away with this convention. And here's another case, also about a 棺床. So the appearance of a relatively high coffin couch paved the way for the adoption of high-legged couches in tomb. So what's the difference between relatively high coffin couch with these high-legged couches in tomb? It's a little bit confusing, I think. And it's in English, it's really, I think it's kind of confusing. In other places, we see the author actually refers to the same type of structures as a coffin platform, which I think immediately solves the confusion, if you can read here. So this relatively high coffin platform paved the way for the adoption of high-legged couches. So it's pretty clear. And then why does he not use this term consistently in his article? Because the author implies that this is because local archaeologists, they use the term coffin couches, 棺床. So I believe, just the author wants to give them credit for this. But in English translations, these misnomers serve no good purpose except to mislead the reader. So I think we'd better correct them to more accurate terms. In conclusion, Chinese archaeologists tend to hold a realistic approach to tomb materials and respect the conventional usage of terms. To Chinese readers, these tendencies and their written expressions can be easily understood. However, in English translations, they may cause confusion among readers who have no sense of Chinese scholars' social and cultural concerns. In this case, I believe that art historians can help to clarify the cultural differences with their interpretive skills. Thank you.
Before Professor Sarah Nelson gave us some remarks on the contents and on the presentations, I would like to first thank our judgment panel, especially panel chair Katheryn Linduff, for all the judgments, hard work in evaluating these submissions, because we've got really strong submissions to choose from. Well, in case I haven't introduced the judgment panel members, here is the chair, Professor Katheryn Linduff from University of Pittsburgh, and we've actually got a video message from her.
Good morning. I'm Katheryn Linduff from the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm speaking to you today over videotape because I am not able to be at this ceremony. I had to leave the conference early, and I apologize for not being here in person. But it's my very great pleasure to be part of a community of people who have put together publication in English and has been underway for several years now. And we know, for example, that this brings into the conversation Chinese materials in English that have not been available prior to this time to those who don't read the Chinese. Gary Guan was instrumental in bringing this to our attention, the interest in this community of scholarship, and he is sponsoring this year a translation contest which is called the CCR, or Chinese Cultural Relics Translation Contest for Young Scholars. He asked for translations of particular passages, received them, and then a board, which I happen to chair, chose among those the top translations in the group of submissions. Most especially what we're doing this time is giving prizes to individuals who have submitted and who've been selected by a process where 5 of us read all of the translations, submitted our responses, and we came up with the following 2 top prize winners. Now, I'm not going to tell you who's first yet, but I will tell you that Jiawei was one of the 2 top, and Gideon was the other of the top 2 translators. And I'm delighted today to be part of, even if by videotape, the celebration of their translations on behalf of Gary Guan and Eastview Press. We offer them these certificates, and very soon they're going to announce the top winner and the runner-up, as well as honorary members of the community who supplied translations as well. Thank you very much, and congratulations to all our winners.
And now let's welcome Professor Sarah Nelson.
I do have things to say in spite of not being very prepared, because I can tell you a little bit about those of us on the receiving ends of the translations, and probably I'm worse than others in terms of I'm not really a fluent reader of Chinese. If it's archaeological, I can get it, is about my standard of reading. So I personally, and other people may have had other approaches, but I tended to read the translation as if I were a totally non-Chinese reader, to just make sure that I could understand it. And in the end of this process, I'll just get to the end and get back later to the other parts, but at the end I am so impressed with the intelligence, the drive, the hard work of doing translations. I really have always taken them for granted. Okay, well that's nice, I can now read this much more easily than otherwise. I have to say, I am so grateful to translators now. I thought you did a beautiful job. Everybody, whether they're winners or not, did a really good job. And another thing that I have been incredibly impressed with in this process is the way that the people at the press put this thing together, and the way they sent it to us as the ones to make some comments and choices. Because what we got was an enormous pile of stuff, and I, of course, being always in a big hurry, I just took it over to my office and printed it all out without reading the directions. The directions, unfortunately, would have helped me a lot, because then I proceeded to take it all back home and sit down with it and read it all and comment on every single one, which wasn't what I was expected to do. Instead, there was one bunch of papers that they knew would not win the prize, but were sent to us to show us the range of translation abilities. And but in a way for me, this was probably a good process first, because then I could appreciate the really good translations even more. It made it really nice. So I thought that whole process was very good, and it was, again, for me, it was a little rushed, but I was so taken with the process, that I read it all really, really carefully and looked and compared papers because, for one thing, I wanted to feel that the prize had been given to the right persons and that it was that I had understood what their problems were in translating. And so that was impressive. I'm further impressed with Gary's talk the other day. Such detail in understanding the problems of working, so I hope you all heard it because it was really brilliant. Thank you so much for helping us really parse out what are the ways that you have to think in order to do good. So at each step I've been more impressed with the ability of people to translate so precisely and nicely into another language. As I say, I sort of took it for granted before. And so I want to say that I am impressed also with these speeches that I just heard and understand their process of getting into the precise, really good translation. And I could see that with the lesser translations that I also read. I could really see how much effort had gone into it, but I still didn't appreciate it fully until I heard your two talks. It's thoughtful, you have knowledge to bring. It's such a serious effort to do all this. So I am incredibly impressed by the work of all the translators, including the ones who didn't win. I think it's a very, very hard job, and I am very grateful that you're all doing it. And I love cultural relics.
This was not planned. I just wanted to say a few words. I really wanted to attend this, and I'm speaking as the incoming president of CCR. This is obviously the first time that such an event is held at one of the CCR conferences. I've known Gary for a long time. In fact, he and I were classmates in 1989, and our teacher was Linduff. So we've known each other a very long time. Gary contacted me while I was on vacation regarding this particular idea he had some time ago, many, many months ago. At the beginning, we just had some conversations about how that could fit in the CCR program as a non-CCR event, in a way, right? Make sure those were separate kind of things happening. I subsequently was not involved in this process, and Gary, of course, interacted with the program organizer, Ron Flatt, and he put that together. All of us who know Gary know that he's extremely tenacious and hardworking, and from what I've seen, I'm also very impressed with how professional the process has been. And it's a kind of event that makes sense in an organization like this, in a conference, I think. The difficulties of translating and figuring out what people mean and how English speakers are going to understand. We discussed, for example, the journal and what the market was for the journal, but this particular translation contest is truly interesting. And as you all know, the next conference will be in China, in Nanjing, and it is always in the hands of the local host to determine their own programs. But I see this as a possibly interesting and fruitful event that could be carried through future conferences if you continue to want to do that. So thank you very much. Very interesting.
Now is the exciting moment for Gary to announce the honorable mentions and to present the prizes to to the final winners of the first prize and the second prize. Welcome, Erin.
Before I make the announcement, I would like to just try to be briefly make a little remarks. And it was more than 2 years ago, I initially got the contact from East View Press regarding possibility of translating or working on this Chinese Cultural Relics journal. And give you a little bit more of my background that, as Francis already mentioned, I actually 2 years ahead of him. I got to meet at 1987, he got in 89. At any rate, we both studied under Professor Katheryn Linduff. And in 1992, I got a job as a senior archaeologist for cultural resource management company. Before I finished my dissertation, I was ABD, jumped on the opportunity and moved to Atlanta. And I thought I would still be able to finish my dissertation, but I was totally wrong. When you get the real job, get into a life, they're just not quite feasible. So regretfully, I never finished that. And but still, I worked as a professional archaeologist for 3 years in that field until some misfortune, I got laid off. And accidentally, after almost 19 years, started from 1978 study. This is my other classmate, 1978 to 1982 at Peking University in archaeology program. And so with 9 years, actually more than that, it's more than 10 years for college in anthropology, archaeology, and 3 years full-time professional archaeologist. Then all of a sudden I shifted accidentally into a professional translation field. So I have been a professional translator for 22 years and almost totally left archaeology of Chinese antiquity studies. And so when I heard the news from East View, this is almost unbelievable. To me, it's almost too good to be true. And so, of course, that I still remember that little testing paper, only 4 pages, about Song Dynasty brick tombs. And as a testing, and I have to like more than triple, quadruple time and energy and effort. With all my archaeological background, this thing has so much ancient Chinese architect in it, and it's really stretched to my ability of expertise. But I worked very hard on that, and normally translating 7,000 words of Chinese material to English, for me, is not more than two days work. But it took me more than 2 weeks to finish this work. And not only that, I got my friend, native English speaker, make sure polish the English, and even Professor Linduff, just after she returned from Japan, a long trip, and spend the time word by word go over and help work on this. And I want to mention this again back 2 days ago when I make a presentation, I made that because one of my translation colleagues, translators, heard of this and said, Gary, this is something that wasn't even real yet. You put that much energy at this kind of age. And my answer to him, I said, well, listen, even you're the best soccer player, you cannot guarantee every time you shoot, you will go. But I can guarantee you one thing, if you don't shoot, you never go. So I'm simply kidding. So, long and behold, I go, and it turned out that this is such a a really rewarding experience ever since that. I'm kind of bring both of my passion of 22 years professional translation and 19 years professional in archaeology. Now, I felt this is almost like a higher calling. This is just made for me to play a role in this. And as all of you here, I know that you studied this besides your academic interest. You always have one thing, that's the passion. That your love for the Chinese antiquity and Chinese heritage, and also in the process you bring this to the rest of the world. And I was one time joking, somebody mentioned, say, think about what is the most important thing in your life. In the end, if you only allowed to measure one thing for your life's worth in this world, what would it be? And without even thinking further, my answer is, if I can put on my tombstone that he dedicated his life to make a Chinese cultural heritage to be the entire humanity to share. And that's all what we're doing. And so that's really why all my passion and drive into what I'm doing. And as a matter of fact, about this contact, long before I talk about have this idea, I also have some other idea about the world basically is still encouraging this, but I was thinking in the other side. And my friend Francis pretty much discouraged that and shut it down. And then, but he did give me the hint at that time. He said, you know, if you think of some way to encourage students, young scholars, that would be something. But later on, that actually is the inspiration. And eventually, I came to this idea. And of course, it's only an idea. After Xin and Anna, Rachel, everybody's collective work, that whole idea now became a reality. And even right after we announced, we were kind of really nervous. What happened if nobody participated? and back early part of the year, almost by the end of the day, one little email I received from Anna. And somehow I think it was attached to a link of an early version of the registration. And I look at that, it's only one is myself testing that thing if it worked, and then another one. Because that was very early, but I didn't realize. And I thought, geez, now we're bound. We do. And finally, after all the scare, I discovered I looked at the wrong thing. The other one showed more than 50 registered. Oh, it's really very exciting. I have to say, this is beyond my dream. This is such a success. Of course, it's the hard work of the organizers and the reviewing board, and also, most importantly, is you, the contestant, the participant, that I guess what I did is serve the purpose. And hopefully, this will be continue encouraging more new young scholars into our field. As a matter of fact, also recruit more students for you in this field, that more people would get into this. So I just want to, I know I can run forever, so I want to just give you this background and cut it off, and I'm going to make the formal announcement. We go from the honorary mentioning, and the first one is, let's make sure the name, Daisy Holden. I believe she's from UK, and unfortunately she's not here, but we got video stream, so I hope she's watching. And she is one of our honorary mention member, and show her, and and the other two honorary mention actually here, and I would say Erin West. Here you are, and also you're running up for the 3 current all the what we have so far. Okay, great, congratulations. Next honorary mention is Mitchell Ma. All excellent work. Yes, thank you so much. And now we'll go to no drums, huh? We'll go to the first runner-up, the second prize winner, and it's Gigi. Here is the book, and also as the second prize winner, make sure. Here also the real price, $750. You win, and there are also each new prize also provide a travel stipend grant. Yeah, help you. Yeah. So now is obviously is the clear winner, the Jiawei. Good prize. And the price, $1,000.
Here's Thank you so much for being here.